Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade, focused on student support and digital experience. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology. We'll be bringing you their perspectives on how digital transformation is reshaping the way we recruit, engage, and graduate learners. You'll hear firsthand accounts of how institutional leaders are developing their strategy, as well as get deeper on the stories of how these EdTech tools are being built to foster better student outcomes. With that, let's get to today's episode. Welcome back, everyone, for another super special bonus live episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, recorded here at DisruptED at ASU, put on by Collegius Education. I'm here with Denise from College of Western Idaho to talk more about their student success work. But we'll start as we always do. If you want to tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and your role at CWI.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. My name is Denise Aberle-Cannata. I'm the Provost at the College of Western Idaho. I've served in that capacity for 6 years.
Excited for this conversation in particular, being a lot in kind of student engagement, student success space, a lot in kind of digital education. And so it's been kind of exciting to see how that kind of has kind of flourished and everything. But, you've built an interesting model there. And if you can just give us some kind of context on what it is and how it came to be, and then we'll kind of break that down a little bit more of kind of how you measure success and everything, but just kind of set the table stakes of your, student success model and approach at CWI.
At CWI, we're unique. We're a relatively young institution. We are 17 years old.
Wow.
Grew extremely rapidly, and you know what happens. The growth was there, but the systems were not. And so when I arrived at CWI, was a time when we had to step back and reflect. And one of the things I've always been interested in is what I call the student life cycle, is what does that student look like? And at CWI, initially, it felt like on graduation, the president and I stood on stage to see how many students made it through the maze that we had constructed for them. And I wanted to change that. And so we painstakingly laid out every single step of that journey, because I didn't want to tell people what we were doing wrong. I wanted us all to see it. And it became painstakingly obvious where there was disconnects and confusion. And we were doing everything but making for a smooth plan for our students to not only enter, but to actually graduate.
Yeah, and I guess, there can be a lot of aspects, I guess, around like kind of student success and how you sort of facilitate it. So I guess there's kind of a brief follow-up to that. You were growing quickly, recognizing some, gaps and everything. How much of kind of your response was like, based in the technology you're using, or like communications, or staffing, like maybe, mix to some extent of all of that, but like that idea of like resource allocation, like what was your sort of point of view, and then how did they all kind of like break down sort of ratios, I guess, of like, tools, outreach and just sort of information sharing, and then staff?
Fair question. I didn't approach it from we're going to need technology or we're going to need staff. I approached it from what's not working. Let's first identify, let's map out this life cycle, and realizing, the biggest lesson was students don't live in the systems. They live in the places in between, and it's our job to align that experience in between things, because students are not machines. We can use technology to be more efficient, but actually that students' experience at CWI is based on the relationships that they're building early on with our staff.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, did you feel like, maybe comparing any, prior experiences and stuff that you had, of like, as a young institution, did you feel like it was easier to kind of like the change management that needed to happen in terms of like, what we were doing before was creating some gaps around student success, student engagement, like just comparing, I guess, that sort of process, like, with an institution that maybe had been doing things for decades and decades. It's like, we haven't even been around that long. Like, there's not so much sort of like entrenched or like baked in, like just any anecdotes, I guess, from that kind of part of the experience.
Interesting. The change management difficulty was the one piece that I had underestimated. That proved to be the most challenging because of the rapid growth And the fact it was a startup, people took great ownership. So when you come in and you want to change things, people took offense to it initially because they thought, what am I doing wrong? We've had this great growth. Why are you trying to change what we're doing? So that was a lesson I learned as a leader was do it again. Change management should be at the front of what we were trying to do. That actually was the biggest lesson I learned out of the whole process.
Yeah. And I think, it's always, the big hurdle, change management in whatever form and shape it takes, even for a young institution where it may be, again, the underestimation of like, oh, it's not so ingrained or whatever. Like we can be flexible and change. It's like, but like you that is so interesting. Yeah. Like people would think that you are calling into question, the way that we got here, which is working great. Right. Like, so I guess, obviously for any student success work, I think the big KPI, the measure of success for these sort of efforts is retention. You want to make sure that you keep the students you have, that they're persisting and graduating. Were there any other things that were like good indicators for you of like that this is working in the way that you want it to give the students a better experience? Were there other ways that you were like measuring or tracking things with this?
Initially, something quite simple. It wasn't just somebody that applied and registered. It was academic engagement. Did that student engage initially? That was a huge, metric that we used to measure. And I just want to clarify too, for us, it's not just about persistence and graduation. We've taken it a step farther. For us, it's employment. When you're done with that degree, that's the student life cycle. And if you want to change jobs after you've left CWI, we're trying to be a place where that student can come back to again and get refreshed in their resume or things so that it truly is a place that can help someone through their entire career journey.
Yeah. And that is like I think another kind of compelling, KPI or sort of indicator that you're doing your job well for any institution is like, are students like engaged as alumni or coming back or being kind of repeat customers in the sense of like coming back for lifelong learning or whatever else? Like, if you can track those things, like that is a good indicator of, well, you must have been satisfied with your experience, because you're re-engaging in that more kind of on a, I guess, kind of existential level. But because, like you can, do surveying and maybe get some sort of like pulse check on, day to day, like, do you feel as though you are supported and, this institution is kind of engaging you and giving you what you need and stuff. But obviously, like, you're not always going to get every student to respond. And, so you're kind of just getting a snapshot in time and just from those few people. But I'm curious just because, you're saying, CPY is, new institution, scaling quickly and all that. And you're kind of wanting to make these adjustments and all that. Like, what worked well for you as you were scaling this effort, as you're like, okay, making these changes, engaging with that change management and stuff like that? Like, as you're saying, like, okay, we need to do this and do more of it. I'm just curious with that because I think sometimes it can be where your institutions are doing something in kind of a small pocket or very targeted effort or whatever else, and it can be effective, but then they might struggle to actually like, put the resources in to, expand it to the whole campus versus just, first year students or something. So any perspectives or reflections on that of like, okay, maybe we're seeing that it's working, these adjustments that we're making to fill these gaps. How are you kind of like keeping it moving forward, keep improving on it, keep expanding on it?
Well, one of the things I knew would change it, initially it was called Denise's Initiative, which I knew was not what I wanted to be called. And so eventually, as people started to see results, it became very much institution driven. And that was the secret sauce, was it has to be institution driven. So everyone owning a certain piece, but at the end of it, putting that puzzle together. And that's how I knew that it was becoming hugely successful because people started to see immediate results from the effort that they put in, where prior, many people engaged with a student, got them registered, saw them through their persistence, but didn't know what happened to them after that. This way, they know exactly what happened to every single student that's entered, registered, started, and is persisting, because we did implement coaching in addition to advising when we started this new model. So it really helped people focus on their specialty versus being spread so thin that they didn't have time to actually spend the time with the students.
Yeah, that's a good call out though, is like, for many reasons, I guess, but like that idea that like somebody, is driving this kind of work forward, but it is so reliant on them, that because like it could be because of ego or something, or just because like, I don't know, there's just limited, skill sets or time or whatever. But like that would be the ultimate tragedy is that like you were there doing all this great work, you leave and then it all falls apart or whatever. It's like, no, please do not make this like it's my thing or whatever else. It's like, it is our thing. It is for all of us. It is for all of our students. So, that is a good call out is like, you do need to get that sort of, acceptance and like, it may be if you do like start with a pilot, that is like your pet project, but then that idea of like, I gotta get like buy-in from like top levels of leadership so that they really invest in this, so that it has the resources so that it can, keep going on. Cause I think, again, I think that is sometimes, just a thing that happens, which is very unfortunate. So, I guess, there's any other, because I think, we're here at DisruptED for, put on by Collegiate Education. I'm just curious if like with that aspect of it, is there, anything specific in terms of like the technology piece? Because I was sort of trying to get kind of like, what were the ways, the different components of your strategy and everything. I'm always curious in that digital transformation piece. So anything you can speak to on that of like, how did, technology, empower the work that you were doing? So you maybe weren't, thinking in sort of really specific buckets or whatever, but, like you knew what you wanted to do and all that, like how did technology, help you get there?
That's a simple question. Teaching individuals how we could work smarter, not harder. We had manual systems and software systems that were disjointed all over the place. So in pockets, they had information, but it wasn't shared at the enterprise level. So it made it very hard for us to make strategic direction decisions or to do anything else that had global impact at the institution. So just, using the systems to help, but not relying on them. And in that short period of time, during our work, we added a CRM. We did not have one. So that was a huge win for our, front end folks to see exactly who's coming in, where are they dropping out. We changed our learning management system as well, added, so it was a lot of different systems, but the efficiency gained by those systems showed people I've been spending most of my time doing things that weren't really part of the big why for CWI, which really was that student life cycle and getting every student that comes through CWI to graduate and placement or to transfer, which was our goal.
Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting, even to get that idea of like that you still experience kind of the same change management struggles others might have, at a more tenured institution, and then that idea of, I guess, there's one aspect of like, if you're kind of like an upstart, you do have to make some sacrifices and kind of be scrappy for a bit, at the beginning. But then I guess what it sounds like, was that idea of, institutions often, historically had all these sort of bureaucratic processes and systems and tools or whatever that worked great for them, like worked great for the faculty and staff, didn't work so great for the student. And it's like, there is sort of I feel like a danger maybe of like going down that path of like, oh, everything's kind of isolated and separate and, but it works great for you probably because you kind of had to like, scrappy, kind of, put it together yourself and that sort of thing. So, I guess, can you sort of like, I guess, confirm my sort of suspicion there? And if it's sort of, again, like reflecting on any experiences at prior institutions or whatever, like, that idea of, even at a young institution, some of those things were kind of bearing out again that you had to navigate just any of those. Because I guess for me, it's just really fascinating to draw that kind of comparison between, CWI is a newer institution with, older ones and still experiencing some of the same, problems and struggles.
I think at the heart of everything is trust, right? And whether you're a seasoned institution or new institution, failed rollouts erode that trust. Adopting technologies that never actually get implemented also causes people to just think, I'm going to wait it out, and they'll tire of this initiative and move forward. So I knew that we had to get quick win to show people. And one of the most compelling was talking to students who explained to us what their process was like, and then some of us enrolling ourselves so that we could see how challenging it was for a student. And we know what we do. We understand all our nuances, but imagine you're somebody graduating from high school or who's been out of school for 15 years trying to get through that system. So, restoring trust with a very small win was the step one. Then we wanted to do it again. And it just started to propel itself into, I'm proud today. Everything we look at is always about how does this impact what our mission is. Everybody's fully aligned on what our goal is. It's from inquiry all the way through placement. And we're still working out that piece, but it's been wholeheartedly adopted by our entire campus.
Yeah. And I do think it is like a cultural piece or whatever, is that you're sort of like emphasizing and affirming and reaffirming, that like lens, like if you kind of like click into it, you view things a different way. Because I know, like for me, I'll do a lot of onboarding calls sometimes with students that I support and realize that I don't know, like, well, we get your parents in to connect and they can like help you and view. It's like, I don't know actually what that view looks like, because it's a very unique part of sort of the whole interface is that like, I see my admin view, I can get a demo account to get the student view, but then there's sort of a like connection view that sort of like has, a different experience. And so it's like, those are the things of like, that just clicked in. I need to like, get somebody to at least like help me get some like snapshots or something, screenshots of the interface. And I can kind of like help people navigate stuff that way or, whatever else. But I think it's just a critical lens to the things that you do. And, so if you identify those areas of improvement and, just can kind of continuously do that, you have to do it collaboratively. You have to, build trust and, rapport and, build that coalition, with your team to do things effectively and do them so they'll actually stick and, all that. So I guess on that point, though, we'll end as we are doing for all of our episodes here. Final bit of advice that you'd want to share for other leaders that are navigating this moment, certainly, focusing in on their student success efforts.
Do not underestimate culture. I mean, culture is always the biggest driver. Leaders can, align things, but it's really the culture that's got to carry them forward. And I always liken it to my team. We're in a relay. If I'm waiting on the corner for somebody and they don't show up, we all fail as a team. And so that's really what has driven this initiative, is you've got to think of everybody that's on your team and everybody getting to the same destination. And that does not exclude students. It includes everybody.
Yeah. I was going to make sure to mention that idea of like the student piece, because it could be its own distinct culture, but it is really like the institutional culture includes the students in addition to all the faculty and staff and all that good stuff. So, just really appreciate you. We're jumping in here right before lunch. We wanted to get this one in quickly. Just appreciate you doing that, sharing all that you did, and grateful for you for all the awesome work that you do at CWI. And we'll be bringing out more episodes, so stay tuned for more great stuff from DisruptED.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Geek podcast. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow. So be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.